Good evening, folks. Red County Blue Nation, December 18th, 2024, Westcliff, Colorado, United States of America, County of Custer, Stephen Rorick, James McMahon. Jimmy, how are you this evening, buddy?
We're doing good. Yourself?
I'm hanging in there. Yeah, Christmas time, so that's always good. I mean, I don't have a whole lot going on for Christmas this year, which is actually not too bad. We'll go down to my cousin's and have dinner down there, and we don't have much of a family anymore, so it's not like it used to be, but
Yeah, same here.
Still enjoying it.
Yeah, we're going to some friend's house.
Are you?
Yeah, yep. Real close, just a few miles away. Kind of staying close. So
That way you can eat a whole bunch and make it to the couch. Huh?
exactly, it's all about the timing.
Work all that stuff down so we can have more pie.
More pie.
Well, folks, we have a little information on the Justice Center here. We got 60-some pages of the Custer County Justice Center Master Plan. We finally got a little action from the courthouse, which was good. We were worried they wouldn't have anything. Of course, we were looking for some minutes from the meetings and some stuff like that would actually. I mean, the biggest problem that I have, or one of the biggest problems, is the lack of transparency of how they got this deal initiated in the first place. I mean, to orchestrate basically a $900,000 deal for a super small set of acreage, I mean, I will say that it fits good, right? It fits good with the existing
Locale.
Yeah, I mean, it fits good. It's just, we don't need the damn thing. That's the problem. There's really, I mean, we couldn't find any minutes from any meetings. The clerk told Jimmy that she didn't have anything, correct?
She didn't even have this.
Yeah, she just...
I got her that. Lucas found this when he was stumbling around in the basement looking for something. When I called him, he said, "Hey, I just happened to find this thing." Really? Cool. Said, take it to Kelly, because it would be good to have this on file, with all the other stuff. And then to find out, Kelly said, I didn't even have that. So a pretty large, a $20+ million issue in the county. And we had no recorded paperwork on it other than that lease, that whatever that thing is that they entered into to buy the property.
Yeah, and we'll get that on the website, folks, so you can look at it for yourself. I mean, it's kind of the technical jargon of that. I mean,
It's not cut and dry.
It's not cut and dry. Well, it's like a purchase, but it's a lease purchase.
And it's kind of like the COP thing maybe they were talking about, certificate of participation, that kind of skirts our vote. They can get around us and finance things in a different way. And I looked that thing up, and it was talking about long-term leases, and the voters don't have to okay it. So.
Yeah, so COP is a certificate of participation, and that's what's going on in Golden right now with a civic center that the people voted down, 53.3 million, I think. We can post this, what little bit we know on that, on the website as well. But yeah, so the people voted that down in Golden, and they've, I guess from what you're saying, they get private money to float to build it, but then go ahead and make us pay for it, which I don't know how they can do that. I guess that's something we need to really talk to the attorney about. the when we voted for the bond issue, and that's actually to get the money. So I guess maybe that's different than actually voting on the Justice Center itself. I mean, I guess I don't know how that.
The bond was to finance the Justice Center.
Yeah, and so I don't understand. I guess I don't understand the legal ramifications of how they can get private money in this COP, certificate of participation, how they can get private money and still make us pay for it.
And here again, part of that could be financed through the state. There's a few things that was going on there.
From what I've read, they can come up with is $1 million from the state.
And that's kind of what I was looking at. And then looking at that COP thing, there's some gray areas there, but it's statutes. I mean, they're there. So
yeah, how that
we may, and I don't know what's going on.
Something's going on because there's still. I mean, and so we've had some comments on the emails talking about, I'm not going to mention any names, but a gentleman has written us an email talking about how that they've done a lot of research and a lot of different stuff, and there's no way that they can do the Justice Center because we voted it down. And I mean, that's what we would expect, right? I mean, that's why we have the vote. But yet, obviously something's up because we still pay the $50,000 a year to the Chet Hagen Trust for the ground that we can't do anything with except for build government buildings on. So how, if we're not doing the Justice Center, then why didn't we just take the $250,000 loss? Or it'd been less of a loss if when we voted on it. What did we vote on that 2 years ago? I forget now. Was it 2022? Yeah, so that would have saved us another $100,000 right there. Then it'd been only $150,000 loss if they would have cut their loss. But they do not want to. They are fighting tooth and nail to make sure that this goes through, and we're trying to get to the very bottom of it. Mr. Bill Canada has so graciously agreed to come on the podcast after the holidays, which we appreciate that, Bill, for sure. I mean, I don't know all there is to know about this. Otherwise, I would already have released all the information and put all this out there. I mean, we're still trying to figure it out. And that's what's kind of ornery about the whole thing is why are we trying to figure this out? Why don't we already know what the hell they're doing? They work for us, folks, and that's what we're trying to get you to understand here. They're spending your money, whether you like it or not. And even though you said no, they're still trying to do it. And so, some people think that it's all said and signed and sealed, and I wish that was the case. But in my opinion, if that was the case, why are we still paying on the ground that we can't do anything else with? So that doesn't add up to me. There's a...
You ain't got enough of that Common Core math in you.
Well, almost made me say something I shouldn't on air, but something in the woodpile.
Well, the way this thing is, way it started and the way it's evolved and some of the behavior that was done. Here again, we should have a absolute track record from the conception of the mandate.
Well, and the thing is I didn't mean to cut you off, but if it's so good and it's so great and it's so all of this and all of that, why doesn't everybody know about it?
So that's what I'm saying. There's things, and I was able to talk to Bill Canada today, the commissioner. He's a fine feller. I think he tries his best to do what he can. But there was some information that he shared with me, and I said, it's kind of like pulling teeth here. And I said, it shouldn't be this hard. We should be able to go see every move you've made, and following the statutes. Because there's statutes and things to follow when you're an elected official to keep you out of looking suspicious with suspicious behavior. And that's where the ethics comes in. And that's a big thing here, is ethical behaviors. Was there some Because either ethical behavior will exonerate you, or it will stab you. It's either a shield or a sword. So, anyways, that's the trouble I'm having with some of this stuff. Is where are the minutes of the meetings? Was there 3 appraisals? How did we acquire the land?
There's no appraisals.
So I don't know if there is or not.
Well, I mean, according to the clerk and recorder, there's no information on the Justice
Yes,
Center
nothing.
at all.
In
And
the early-
they just happened to find this digging around, muddling around down in the basement. So, I mean, come on, folks, let's put 2 and 2 together here. I mean, we're not trying to accuse anybody straight out the gate, but it's deceptive right off the bat. Why? How can you obligate someone for property to that extent if it's that's the whole thing, right? So if it's all great and fabulous and everything's up on board, because I've done some research on some justice centers. I was looking at a couple of them, $75 million. But I mean, these are big towns, right? I mean, they got 300 bed jails and all of this, and I mean,
And they got 1 million people.
or more.
Or more.
Yeah, these counties are.
It's not 3,000 or 4,500 or however many people are here.
yeah, not even close to what and
Sheesh.
yeah, we're you're talking about a comparable rate, 75 million to 20 million, right? I mean, that's like, so they'd only have for our people, that'd be like 16,000 people town or something, 18,000 people. I mean, it just doesn't fit. And I've outlined some stuff here that doesn't make any sense to me, but anyhow, this stuff's going to be on the website so that you can look at it for yourself. I mean, it's fairly easy to read. I mean, it's not like it's super complicated and a whole bunch of attorney vocabulary that just leaves the most common people in the dust, right? I mean, it's pretty easy to get around. So the sheriff's office, they tried to give you an idea. So they have what they call net square footage and gross square footage. So the net square footage is what's assignable. That would be like the offices, right? And so all of the offices would go into the net square footage, but yet the gross square footage would be like the halls. So the hallways in the public space or the lobbies or all of that doesn't go on the net square footage. So the gross square footage is a lot more than the net square footage. And I mean, for me, that's a little deceptive. Right, I just want to know what the hell the number is. I don't want to know about how you're going to try to dissect it into 100 different pieces and then tell me how big this one is or how big that one is. It's how big it is how you want to cut it up.
Well, and there's rules. I think that they want such and such room this big and such room this big, and
so part of what, and I did quite a bit of research and I couldn't come up with anything that's any kind of a statute, but they have what they call on here the 2039 space requirements. Okay, and so what they've done, they have the 2024, 2029, and 2039 space requirements, and this was done in 2019. The preliminary part of this, this actual document is from September 24, 2020. But so I guess what they've done is taken a 5-year, a 10-year, and a 20-year look at where it needs to be according to growth. But they make it sound like 2039 space requirements. Well, after looking through all my stuff, and like we've said before, folks, and we'll say it again, if anybody out there has some pertinent information that actually has proof of what we're talking about and we're not right, we're more than happy to redact what we said, because, I mean, we're doing the best we can with the information we have. But to the best of my knowledge, this 2039 space requirements, all that is an assessment or a recommendation from the architect. It has nothing to do with a mandate or legislation or something from the state that says that you have to have this amount of space. But yet they try to make it sound like that. So like, I mean, basically what they're trying to do is buffalo us into it, right? They're trying to bulldoze us in the hole with it. Oh, this is the space requirement for 2039 or 2029, 2039, right? Like it's whose requirement, right? It ain't a requirement, right? It's a suggestion from the architect from what I can find. So with that being said, so the sheriff's office, including the dispatch, the net square footage 5513, gross square footage 6891. Sheriff's detention 11,000 to 15,000. Right, so they're talking about another 15,000 or another 4,000, 3,800 and some square feet of just halls and electrical rooms and all this stuff, right? And so, I mean, it's a little deceptive for me. Like, why can't you just say it is what it is? And I mean, that's neither here nor there. So the sheriff's detention, they think we need courtroom needs to be 11,000 net, 15,008 gross, including a 1,320 square foot multi-purpose community room. Okay.
Club Custer.
Yeah, why do we need a community room in the jail, right? I mean, that doesn't make much sense. The probation, UPS, DA, and the public defender, another 1,000 square feet, so 1,200 gross. So you're talking about 28,899 net square feet and 39,044 gross square feet. So this thing that they proposed is 39,000 square feet. I mean, that's pretty big.
How many feet's in an acre? 42,000?
43.
Yeah, 43,000.
Yeah, so I mean, this thing's almost an acre.
I always put things in acres.
That being said, okay, the Justice Center single phase, right? So they tried to break it down. Well, can you do it all in one phase, or we got to build onto it and then build onto it again and da-da-da-da-ya. So the single phase is 22 mil. The total cost for designing and building for sheriff law enforcement / administration office and detention center only is $13.45 million, and for the detention center only is $10.4 million. So let's dig into that a minute. So $10.4 million for a detention center that we can send them to Florence for $50 a day. Boy, I mean, that is a lot of days. That is a lot of days.
The pride of ownership, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what it really boils down to is everybody gets a new office, and we get to live in luxury, and we're going to spend all this money, and we're not going to generate any money, but we don't care because you're going to generate it.
Well, and here again, I think when we first stumbled across this, the nursing thing alone, just the amount of money that costs to run it, how it escalates the cost to the citizens, not just the construction cost, but the administrative cost after it's assembled.
They're talking about $6 to $7 a square foot just to maintain the building. I mean, you're looking at $180,000 a year, folks, just to maintain this building that they're going to build for you. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So the existing and I'm just kind of going over this, and we're just touching on some of this. Everybody needs to read this for yourself. I mean, this information has been hidden. I'm not trying to blame it on anybody. Lucas was the one that stumbled onto it downstairs. I mean, Kelly told us there was nothing. There was no transactions, no records, no nothing. And of course, they say they have the books fixed, but yet I guess we haven't went in there and put a recorder request to actually get the money that's been paid. We asked for all that, but Kelly says they don't have it. So I guess we need to make another quarter request that says specifically what transactions, what monetary transactions do you have that has to do with the Justice Center? Because I mean, it's got to be substantial. Not to mention just the lease, but how much money does this architecture firm? How much money have they made already?
So looking back at the BOCC meetings, Shannon came in and he was on that board, the committee, and he said that they had $75,000-$80,000 kicking around, and that they were able to give that to this architectural firm. But that's on the meeting, the
That's
meeting.
on
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah, and that's me scouring through and trying to find this stuff on YouTube. So
And so the proposed Taj Mahal, the biggest thing that they proposed. So and this is kind of funny. So this is part 3, page 1. Existing space assignments and future space requirements. Okay, the sheriff, admin, law enforcement existing is 1,850 square feet. But in 2024, they say we need 5,055, and in 2029, 5,055, and 2039, 5,055. So basically, they're trying to say that whatever we have now in 2024 is good for 20 years. But yet, whatever we were doing in 2019 is still sufficient. The sheriff's dispatch, I mean, and so they say a few times in here, this is a double asterisk. Since October 1st, 2019, the sheriff's dispatch is no longer handled in Custer County and is contracted with Fremont County. And a reprinting of this report is believed that dispatch might be provided by Fremont County permanently.
so far it is.
So, like, dispatch is one of the main parts of, in my opinion, part of the integrity of the whole system, right, is being able to say, hey, we got somebody over here that, I mean, they've almost cut his leg off, right? And I mean, you only got 10 minutes to get there before he bleeds out.
911.
911, baby. Oh, well, we don't need that, but we need a $20 million building that we don't even dispatch ourselves. That don't make any sense to me, folks. How can you have something that has that much horsepower, but it ain't even controlled in your own county? It's controlled by a county that's 45 miles away or whatever. I mean, that's just one of the many things that doesn't make sense to me. If this thing is supposed to be the crown jewel of whoever's bright idea it was, I mean, the more that we dig into it, the more that it confirms our suspicion that it all about somebody has financial interests involved in this thing somewhere or another, or that why would they want it, right? I mean, it doesn't make no sense that you're going to have your dispatch operated out of Fremont County, but we're going to build a $22 million facility here, but we don't even have our own dispatch. I mean, it's
Well, at that
odd.
point,
Real odd.
Yeah, at that point, we'll have Fremont. We'll dispatch for Fremont. Them folks can call up here. You know what I mean?
Well, and this says there ain't going to be none, right? I mean,
That's what I'm getting at. But you build something like that, my goodness.
well, yeah, you would think that you were going to soak up a lot of the weight that the burden that's supposed to be carried by the law enforcement community, right? But that's not the case. And so the existing courtroom is 2,500 square feet. They think they need 11,000 square feet, and that's going to be good enough through 2039. On and so forth, to the total net square foot of 28,899. Total gross square foot 39,044. I mean, that's, and so the gross square foot The difference between the net square foot and the gross square foot would be like public corridors between departments, public toilets and janitor closets, public entry vestibules to the building, mechanical and electrical, interior and exterior walls, stairs, elevators, vertical plumbing, chassis, and air shafts. Yeah. So, all that being said, and this is it. I mean, it's not a hard read, folks, but there's quite a bit to it. I mean, there's 60 some pages, and I just started looking at it today. I didn't have, even though I've had it for 4 or 5 days, I just haven't had time to really look through it.
And we can email that to you as well. If somebody wants it emailed, I guess we could do that.
It's right on the website.
They could go right to the website.
Yeah, they can download it right off the website.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we don't have time to. It's not that we don't have time, but we're trying to be as efficient as we can. So if you can just download it off the website and not bother us with trying to make us download it and then send it to you, I mean, you just as well download it for yourself as have us download it.
Yeah.
So they wanted there's some breakdowns of different trying to think of the right word here, different scenarios of how it works, right? So, okay, you have the detention center, then you have the sheriff's office, you have the court, and then you have the existing courthouse stuff. So there's really 4 different parts of this that they want to try to, if they had their way, they would incorporate it all into one building to the tune of $22 million. Okay, so they've broken it down into different scenarios. So just the detention portion of the Justice Center, 10.4. So here's what little bit, I mean, they kind of let the cat out of the bag in my mind. This gives a little bit of insight. The Justice Center master plan shows on the bottom of this page was prepared after developing the concept design floor plans shown on the previous 2 pages. Those floor plans fully satisfy the programmed 2039 space requirements. Right, that lets you know right here, folks, that this is not a legislative requirement. This is not a requirement at all. This is a suggestion by the architect. It's not a requirement.
And I don't know if there's something along the way that spells all that out. I did run across, they did have a committee put together of about 20 people, and it's a big read. It's a big long read, but it talks about a lot of stuff.
So here's another thing that was pretty raised a bunch of red flags for me. It is expected that 2/3 of the contingency noted in these cost models will be consumed in the course of planning and designing the facilities and bidding or negotiating the construction contracts, this leaving a 5% contingency available for the county during construction. So they're already telling you right there, folks, they're going to chew up a bunch of your money. Right there. They've already told you. We're going to use 2/3 of the contingency plan just to administrate this thing. Hello, red flags, red flags, red flags. I mean, if everybody was super flush and we was all multimillionaires or whatever, maybe it wouldn't matter. Or if there was actually enough crime that, if there was 300,000 people in this, or however many 100,000 people in this community, then it maybe would be warranted.
It would be perhaps justifiable.
At least you could look, yeah, a little more justifiable than it is now.
At this point in time, we're on an island, and it's miraculously somewhat protected. We do have a nice way of life up here. But if there's somebody knows something I don't know, maybe they're going to change the zoning. Maybe they're going to do all kinds of different. I don't know what's lurking behind all of these people.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Even if they do change the zoning, it still ain't. We did that, folks, last week for you, or the week before,
Yeah.
whenever it was. I mean, the growth rate of this community is, yeah, you're talking about 100 or 200 people maximum per year. So in 20 years, right? We've only grown by, what is that, 50%? And I mean, we're not talking about we had a million people and we grew to 1.5 million, right? You're only talking about another 2,000 people over the next 20 years. That's,
I don't know where we're getting this math. It's not one size fits all, and it sounds to me like they're throwing us into a
where they're getting the math is
like a diamond in a goat's ass here.
yeah, where they're getting the math is this is all a sales pitch. And they try to put it together to you as it's a requirement, but there's damn sure no requirement. We'll get to the end. There's a summary of what actually is wrong. And yeah, so anyhow, back to business, right? So this is the sheriff plus the court total project cost model. This is the whole kit and caboodle, folks. $22,368,500. Site work going to cost $1.393,200 to get water lines and sewer. Okay, going to cost you $2.318,400 for the sheriff law enforcement offices. So the sheriff's going to get $2.3 million worth of new offices in this deal. Oh boy, that really will help the crime around here, folks. I mean, come on, don't you know? I mean, geez, really? Oh, Sheriff Detention Center, 24-bed operating capacity, 7.4. Courts, 5.6. Probation, 201,000. That's for 576 gross square feet, folks. That's $350 a foot for the probation office. The Sheriff's Detention Center, they want $500 per gross foot. And I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff that would go into a hardcore detention center. I mean, I understand that, right? Different locks and
What's a territorial prison?
well, and I understand all that, right? There's a lot.
It's not like building a house or a restaurant.
Yeah, when you're really trying to, I mean, if you're talking about you got hardcore criminals, there's stuff in place. But the rest of it, so I mean, to make the sheriff's offices $350 a square foot. Damn. And they need 6,600 square feet.
It's just the taxpayers' money. It'd be all right.
Community room, 1,000 square foot on that, 386,000. Professional services, architecture, engineering, specialty consultants, reimbursables, topographic surveying, and geotechnical investigation. Material testing during construction, $1.682,900. No wonder they're trying to make a sale on this, folks. That's a lot of money. I guess if I had an architectural firm, I would try to sell that the best I could too, but I don't. Right? We're little country bumpkins here. We just try to do the best we can, and we're not trying to take away. We're not trying to sell this county something they don't need. I mean, that's the whole thing about being an ethical salesperson is you sell something what they need, not what you want to sell them. building permits, water taps, and development fees. The building permit supposedly is included in the rest of that. I mean, I don't know why.
The county's issuing themselves a building permit?
Yeah, it don't make no sense to me, but
Boy, oh boy.
whatever. I mean, it. I mean, it's just, you know, are they getting a cut off of it, or we need, you know, so you're going to give the building permit office more money at the taxpayers' cost?
And the typical inspection on this is going to be done by a state inspector, whether it's the fire suppression, the door locks, all that's not going to be done by some, you know what I'm saying?
No,
All of this liability goes on the engineer, the architect, and the state.
and that's one of the things, folks, of what, I mean, there's no use pointing fingers because we don't know for sure, but it seems awful suspicious of why some people want this thing even though the rest of us don't. Like, are they going to get the money to build it? Or are they going to get the contract to build it? Why the hell else would they want the damn thing? It doesn't make any sense. Anyhow, $62,000 for a water tap. And another $39,500 for the sewer tap. So we're supposed to pay the town of Westcliff $101,000 just to hook up to the water.
You know, and here again, Steve, that's going to go back to, I've been in construction and in development and stuff quite a bit in my life. When you go in to buy a piece of property, there's a lot of negotiation that takes place. And if you're interceding on the behalf of the taxpayer, you know, you're going to try to get them the best deal. To pay 4, 5, or 8 times the amount, that's suspicious. And then not to negotiate some of these other particulars.
Well, that's the thing too.
Who did this? And that's the biggest red flag to me in all of it. Is how
and that's,
did that happen?
Well, that's a question that Mr. Canada's been so graciously accepted our invite, and that's one of the questions that we're going to ask him, because he's the only one left that was on duty when this happened. He was an existing commissioner when this all happened, and he's the only one left of the commissioners that did this.
And he was the commissioner that chaired most of this. I mean, he was involved in it from the beginning. So, yeah. I mean, it's got Tom Flower's name on it. They were definitely talking to him on it.
Well, Tom Flower was the chair at the time, if I understand right.
Yeah.
But so here was one thing too, and I mean, it doesn't make that much difference, but just one thing that I noticed. So on the detention, on the miscellaneous, on the Taj Mahal, the detention center mattress is $4,000, and detention center inmate housing multi-purpose room furniture $6,000. Okay, so I where I was going with that is, so on their smaller structure here, on that's just the sheriff in the courts. On the sheriff in the courts, total project cost, I mean, they've cut the detention center mattresses down to $3,500. Like, that's going to make a difference. Make them sleep on a harder mattress. I mean, the thing, folks, that is, this is just such a monstrosity, and it's so much money, and it's like, how many people is it the brother-in-law deal? How many people are going to get paid on this deal? You know, I mean, I understand that if it needed to happen and it was justified that people have to do it and they can't do it for free, I understand all that, but it doesn't make sense why they haven't been transparent from the start. They pushed it through. They bulldozed the land deal. They tried to kind of do all this stuff. I mean, Mr. Canada's on record saying that they only had one meeting. How in the hell can you do something of this magnitude in one meeting? I mean, it's alarming. And if it's not, I mean, maybe I'm missing a critical angle here, but I haven't seen the angle of why we would even need this thing. And I still can't see the angle. And in the executive summary of this, we can get to some of the stuff that we actually would need. But it doesn't have anything to do with that. I mean, you're going to spend $5 million on the damn for the sheriff, or excuse me, $2.3 million on the offices for the sheriff. Damn, why don't you just buy them a 7,000 square foot house? I mean, that's essentially what we're talking about here. It's a 6,600 square foot. So they go ahead and say, well, if we only wanted to do the sheriff's detention center. Okay, so that wouldn't be the courthouse. That wouldn't involve. And they want to. Their initial plan was to have 2 courtrooms, and I mean, I just can't understand why we would need 2 courtrooms.
Well, we get pretty busy up here. Standing room only, buddy boy.
I know, but there's only one judge, so what the hell, man? I mean, come on, folks. I mean, they're trying to bulldoze you pretty good. Or they're trying to, in my opinion, they're trying to bulldoze me. And I'm just telling you what I can see here. So, sheriff only, no courthouse, still same. 2.3 for the sheriff's office, 7.4 for the detention center. It's only $1 million for the professional services. Still $100,000 for the sewer and water. They got this one wrapped out at $13,450,500.
That's a bargain.
It's a bargain. Oh, we got to do that right now. Okay, now then we want to go to where so they've cut off on this particular one. They've cut off the law enforcement offices. Oh, so we'll just use the existing building that we already have. Boy, that's a great idea. But we're still going to build a detention center to the tune of 7.4. And another 800,000 professional services, another 101,000 water tap, 700,000 for the dirt work in the water. And so right here you're talking at 10, 4, 78, 800. So still trying to get you for 10 million. This one would just be the sheriff's office, detention center, and the courtroom. I don't know how this one is specifically different than that first one. It's pretty close to the same. This one would only cost 17 million instead of 22 million. A lot of papers to sort through, that's for sure. So on this one here, they're only gonna the sheriff's law enforcement offices, is only 2 million instead of 2.3. The detention center is only 5.8 instead of 7.4. They're cutting it down to 11,700 or 14,826 gross square feet compared to 14,826 gross square feet. So they're trying to cut it off. Well, that don't make no sense. They both say 14,000. Well, see, I don't know, folks. Sheriff's Detention Center, 24 bed. Oh, this one only says 18 bed, but it's still the same square feet. And it still costs $500 per gross square foot. So that don't make any sense. It's still... Oh, maybe they're saying gross square foot is 11,000 instead of 14,000. I guess is the difference. That's kind of a typo because it says 14,000 right there, gross square foot. But I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense. So anyhow, they cut the detention center down from 32 bed to 20 bed. I mean, I don't know what's the most inmates we've ever had. Most of the time is like 8 or 9 or 10 inmates. Ever. That I've ever seen. I mean, that used to be in the sheriff's report, would tell you how many inmates was in
Yeah,
there.
and some of those people were in there for like 6 months or something, right? Or is that right or not?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know what you done to get in there, or what's going on, but
Right.
anyhow, so the cheapest one, so we could just build a new courthouse. Okay, so the new courthouse would only cost you $600. Another still $700,000 for the site work. No sheriff's office or detention center. $4 million for your courtroom. $115,000 for probation. $478,400 for professional services. Another $101,500 for the water. So like, I mean, why would we want to spend $6.2 million just for a new courtroom? I mean, that doesn't really address all of the stuff with all of the inmates. The problem with, I mean, I guess that would free up part of the courthouse. But I mean, that, once again, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, folks. The other one here would be the sheriff's office and the detention center, which this was real similar to this one that we just looked at here. So this one would be just like what they said. So the sheriff's just a detention center was going to cost you $10,478,800 if you go ahead and build them some new offices to the tune of $2 million. I mean, they've dropped that down, the square footage of it down a little bit, from 66 down to 59. So then the ticket's only about $11,200,000. So that they're trying to give us some choices here, but I mean, none of it makes sense. I mean, it just don't make no sense. And so with that being said, I mean, the mill increase, right, they're talking about, and so when I first investigated this, I didn't see anything about a mill increase. It was all supposedly touted off sales tax. And I thought to myself, well, there's no way in hell they can ever pay it off sales tax alone. And then come to find out, when you look in the master plan, that's not the case. They want to give you a 7 mil increase. So what is the mill now? 9? I can't remember what exactly it is. But I mean, you're talking about almost doubling your mill levy, folks, for this thing. And they try to tell you, oh, well. So this is the big savings of what they try to dig out. So savings from cost of housing female inmates in Fremont County. And I've never seen them. I mean, I don't know nothing about it, but they're trying to say that they have 4 females in there, and at Fremont County it costs $55 a day. Well, that's $80,300 a year. On a 20-year term, that'd be $1.5 million. Well, that don't account for the interest or none of the other stuff that, I mean, so they're trying to make it sound like, oh, well, we're going to save all this money. Well, but you ain't. You're just spending so much money that you're not going to save anything. It's like saying, well, we're 2 foot down, so let's dig a 30-foot hole and jump off in that, and then we'll only be 28 foot deep.
Yeah, not bad.
Genius, boy.
Brilliant.
State grants that might be received, $1 million from DOLA, possibly $1 million from the underfunded county courts facilities. They're trying to say here they think they can come up with 3.1. And that, I mean, folks, let's be realistic, right? They're trying to feed you this line of crap, saying that they're going to save you 1.15 million. Who's to say that there's 4 female prisoners in there for the next 20 years? I mean, that's unrealistic to say that that's the case, because we know better than that. That ain't going to be the case. It's going to fluctuate. It might be 4 at some point, but it's probably going to be 1, and then maybe more, or maybe less, or maybe none. I mean,
Depends on how hard we need them. We'll find them. We'll get them. Don't you worry about that now.
yeah, so I mean,
Just like the 4,000 kids that judge funneled to that juvenile place. Unbelievable. They had to let them all go. Funny business.
county cash reserves that might be available. We can come up with 225,000 extra from the county.
Well, we just give 400,000 away. Plus all them lots.
We give like 700 and some thousand away on them lots. Okay, use of the property tax increase. They say there's 100 million in total asset valuation, 1 mil increase in property tax yield, 100K per year. Assume debt retirement is 70,000 a mil per year on a 20-year debt, then not each mil retires slightly more than 1.43 in debt. Well, yeah, but that don't account for the interest and all of the administration fees and all of that stuff that happens. So to try to say that every mil is going to alleviate 1.43 in debt, it ain't.
Not even close.
I mean, these are fantasy numbers that a used car salesman is trying to give you. In my opinion, I mean, I'm not an accountant. We got some accountants that can sure dig into it, but I mean, there's always hidden cost in everything. We all know this, but to try to say that we're going to solve it with the mill. Assume average market value of a home in Custer County is $250,000. Now that seems kind of low to me, but I guess I'm not sure. Therefore, its assessed value is 7.2% of $250K. That's $18,000. 1 mil increase in property tax would cost the average homeowner $18 a year. As an example, if 10 million were borrowed with a 20-year term, it would take about 7 mil property increase, costing the average homeowner $126 per year. I mean, they make it sound all right there. I mean, like, if I knew that we really needed it, I mean, I'd chip in another $126 a year. I mean, I would, right? I mean, if it was logical and it's like, man, this is going to help my kids and their kids, and this is going to make us a better community and all of that, that would be one thing. But it's not, folks. You can't logically look at this monstrosity and find where it's going to help anybody but the people that are orchestrating it, and the people that are making money off of the building of it, or the brokering of whatever it is, and the architectural fund. Them are the only people that are going to get paid, and the rest of us are paying for it. It's bullshit. Straight up. And then the mill, that's only one part of it, right? And so then they want to go to you and say they're going to increase your sales tax by 2%. Okay, so a 2% sales tax would generate $650K a year, which would retire $9.29 million in debt on a 20-year term. Well, that again goes without interest or any of the administrative fees or unseen costs that go with it. Right, man? What if interest goes up and you have a variable rate loan?
So, Steve, that's one of the things why I'm sitting here is the future of this county is at stake here. The high taxes, bigger government. That's not what I signed up for when I come up here. Not at all.
Well, and that's back to we talk about bigger government, but the truth of the fact of the matter is that we can't even afford the government we got. The reason that we can't house prisoners in the jail we already have is because we can't afford the 24-hour-a-day medical care that is required. But so, in what fantasy can you spend $22 million and then somehow make that pay for the medical administration? I mean, come on, folks. You can't pay for what you got, but let's build a $22 million thing and try to pay. Like what? Who thinks like that? Once again, the only people that are thinking about this are the people that have something to gain. The rest of us don't want it. We don't need it. There's nothing for us to gain. There's no benefit. There just isn't a benefit, right? I mean, with what Rich Smith has going on now, taking the prisoners to Fremont County for $50 a day. I mean, I've said that before. You can't even hardly find a hotel for $50 a day. And that's in the public sector, right? So, I mean, or in the private sector. So to try to think that we can somehow do it cheaper by spending $22 million, I mean, that's...
And they've got to have the compliance down there. Otherwise, Rich could be taking them down there. Because if they were in the same shoes we were, you know what I mean? Where would we be going? So they must have already have some kind of compliance that's...
Well, Fremont County has a big... Fremont County's big.
There you go. There you have it.
Fremont County encompasses a lot of square miles, and there's a lot of people. So anyhow, in addition to the revenue needed to retire debt revenue, it would be needed to pay. In addition to revenue needed to retire debt, revenue will be needed to pay the annual increase in utilities and maintenance for every new square foot. For example, 31,000 square foot of new building would cost $6 a square foot or more, or $186,000 a year just to maintain the thing. So, like, how far will $186,000 go to revamping what we already have? It'll go a long ways. And so I'm going to get here to the summary. I mean, everybody needs to kind of read this for themselves. I wouldn't expect you to understand me reading out all these numbers. I'm trying to be precise as I can. But I mean, there's a lot to really put together here, so you need to look at it for yourself. Okay, so this is talking about the use of a property tax increase for the new detention center. 110 million. So they've redid this in February of 2020. A 1 mil increase on property tax yields 110,000 a year. This guy Alan Matlow's debt retirement is now $55,800 per year on a 25-year debt. That means each mill retires slightly more than $1.97 million in debt. So you want to pay more you want to pay more tax for something that you don't need. How's that taste to you, folks? It tastes pretty good, don't it? Especially right at Christmas time. Sprinkle a little sugar on that, we'll be fine. I mean, why would anybody in their right mind want to pay for something that we don't need? And that's really the discussion here, is why would we need this? And just to circle back around, I mean, there's some people that think that this thing is dead. But if it was dead, then why are they still paying the money to the Chet Haga Trust? Why are we paying for ground that we can never use besides anything besides government buildings? If this thing is dead, why didn't we turn it back to the Chet Haga Trust? Or better yet, why can't we? I mean, it's pretty fishy to me. And I would think that a really good attorney, if he looked real hard, I mean, how that doesn't violate Tabor and the Sunshine and all this stuff is beyond me. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but there's just for where I am and what I do, it's not transparent. They're hiding stuff. And if they weren't hiding stuff, why did this just come out last week? Where's it been since 2019, 2020? It's been rammed down in the basement so nobody can find it. Kelly Camper tells us, I've never even seen this. Really? Really?
Largest county development ever in the history of Custer County.
And it happened all in one meeting.
And we got the property purchase, and then we got the grandioso this deal. That's all that's ever happened. But there's no documents. There's no procedures that were followed. There was nothing.
Yeah, there's
nothing.
There's no appraisal on the ground. And we've said this before, and we'll put it on the website. You can look at the Custer County Assayer's website and look right on there. The property valuation in 2018 was about $129,000. And so they give almost $876,000, I think is what it says. Oh, but we got a break because they gave us a $1 a square foot tax write-off or tax break. Well, so Mike Haga, he puts that money, he gets the tax write-off and gets the money. So who did he pay off to do this? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And I mean, it can't be complete. What's the word I'm thinking?
Incompetence?
Incompetence. I was trying to think competency, but incompetency. Right? You can't blame it on that because there's too many people involved. There was like 10, 15 people on the board, and it was the sheriff's office, and it was all the commissioners. And so you can't tell me that it was incompetence by everybody involved to just pass this through in one meeting.
And the funny part about it is Jay Prince was an attorney. And he was also a judge. Pretty well-rounded individual in a lot of different areas of law. He wasn't even involved in it. Hell, I didn't even get invited to the meeting, Billy.
No, yeah.
I'm going to sign it anyways.
Well, yeah, and that's right there on the minutes. I mean, we have the transcript. We have the transcript minutes when that conversation took place. And Bill told him, "Well, you didn't miss nothing, Jay. That all there was only one meeting, and you were there."
There's only one meeting.
Really?
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's hash this over one more time, folks. How can 20-some people, however many people's involved, the 3 commissioners, the sheriff, the courts, the judge, everybody that was involved in the sheriff's office, the undersheriff, the dispatcher, or
and Luigi.
And Christina Gallegos, and I mean there was a bunch of people that were involved there.
There was the judge, and then there was Mike, who's the judge now.
Yeah, the bailiff.
Mike was the bailiff. He was on that deal.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of people there that to try to say, well, they just made a mistake, or well, maybe they made a mistake, or they got a little ahead of themselves, or no, folks. I mean, let's look at this. How can there only be one meeting? There's no records at all. I mean, most of the records, what came out that's available was what the reporters from the Sentinel reported on about it at the meeting. I haven't looked through. I did find the date of the meeting that we need to look at.
Good.
To see if some of that stuff is there and actually see what happened. But so like all of the meetings of the committee, why are there no minutes for the committee? And if it's so great, where's all the stuff that... I mean, is this all there is? Is this one thing by a third-party architectural firm that describes all of the transaction or the taking place of what it is? I mean, it just don't add up. And that's all there is to it. There's no possible way that you can plead insanity or whatever, plead the fifth or whatever you're going to try to plead and say, well, we didn't know better or this or that. We know that they're lying, folks, if they say that, right? And I mean, that's what they're saying. because there's no transactions. There's no minutes, there's no nothing. And they said that this didn't even exist except for all of a sudden out of thin blue air, Lucas happened to find it.
When I called him.
Just when Jimmy just happened to call him.
I was calling him again to say, hey now, we got to have some kind of paperwork on that big old albatross somewhere. Hey, looky here, I was just down here. Hot damn, I found me one.
Found it down in the corner, down in the dust, in the cobwebs. And the clerk and recorder's trying to say that's what the clerk and recorder records the minutes of the meeting. She's supposed to be the secretary to keep track of all of this stuff.
All of the public's business.
And there's nothing. I mean, if it ain't alarming, then...
So, Steve, I did want to mention there's 2024 jail standards for Colorado. I found some of this stuff. Legislative Oversight Committee concerning jail standards. Pursuant to the Section 2-3, 1901-5, Colorado Revised Statute, each county jail is required to comply with these standards beginning July 1st, 2026. And man, I'm telling you, there is a lot. It talks about if you're a he, she, a non-binary person, you got the jail shall monitor areas where male, female, and non-binary persons experiencing incarceration are in the same area. I just wanted to show you that's the degree, but there's a whole bunch in that
The
deal.
degree of silliness?
It is an absolute.
Why wouldn't you already have a camera on every square inch of the facility already? But you gotta for non-binary people, so they can do stuff to each other in the corner.
Here again, I ran across that. There's a whole bunch to it. I don't know exactly how much applies to this, but I don't see where you can, it's one size fits all. I think a good remodel here would have been fine.
Well, and so
somebody could have took a different approach and said, look, wait a minute, monetarily, what can we afford? Number two, how can we squeak by here and make it happen with a sally port and an elevator? That's what I was looking at. When I looked through all that, I thought, man, we could have figured this out with a sally port and an elevator. And maybe, a protective wall here and there, just a little bit. But at the end of the day...
So here's the executive summary from the... Here's the executive summary from the architectural firm. Okay. Says this, talking about the sheriff's department and the jail, the building has been converted from a repair shop and as such is found lacking in many areas of safety and procedural accommodation. It's difficult, therefore, to look at improvements to the courthouse, notably prisoner transport, when the transport would be to go and from a facility that itself needs serious upgrades. Okay, and then, but it goes on to say, they want to try to sell you on it first, but then it says right here, the jail itself has some issues which are likely remediable. The lack of proper ventilation, blind spots with regard to video surveillance and other potential safety hazards that exist within the cell area. But the facilities serving the jail are well below the standards. A proper hood with proper fire suppression is lacking in the kitchen. And it basically tries to say, well, it doesn't seem possible to renovate the kitchen to meet the current code without taking the jail offline for some period of time. Well, it's already offline, folks. We don't have anybody there. So
that's a really big note, and we need to key on that.
The jail itself has some issues which are likely remedial. In summary, the building serves its purpose, but only minimally, and it's not well suited for remodeling or renovation without determining a place for these services to be temporarily housed. So basically right there, they're telling you that you can easily renovate this thing. And I mean, so at the cost of $186,000 is what they're trying to say that they're going to save for the 4 women prisoners that are already going down there. Like, none of this adds up, folks. All they're trying to do is sell you a bunch of hogwash, trying to push it down your throat, and trying to talk you into something that we don't need. Also, some people can just get money. That's the only thing that makes sense. None of the rest of this makes sense. So back to the courthouse, right? So the courthouse, the biggest thing that I see with the courthouse, and this has some, the biggest thing with the courthouse at this point is it's not handicap accessible, right? So it doesn't have a handicap elevator to take you to the second floor. I mean, this goes ahead and talks about to the third floor. I mean, it's a 3-floor building, right? You got your basement, your main floor, and the second floor. Well, nobody has any business in the bottom part of the building, in my opinion, or that, to my knowledge. I've never been down there, never seen it, never done none of that. It's like,
Well, there's a meeting room down there, and then there's a big storage area down there. It's not bad.
so that's the public. It's public.
We've had commissioner meetings down there. When Jackie had her little squabble there with Tommy, that's where
So why don't they have the commissioner meetings now? We got to go to all aboard Westcliff and pay $5,000 a year because we're making too much racket in
you know too much.
in the meeting room we already have. We're making too much racket that the accountant can't do her work or the HR person can't do their work. Really, 1 day a week for 3 hours?
Well, they're off on Friday too. Got to remember that. Don't take Thursday, or don't take Wednesday off and come in Friday when no one can bug you and you can get your work done. But we can go to all aboard Westcliff for $5,000. Hurry up and spend it before it's all gone. I'm still, every time I see them snowplows going down the road and there ain't a lick of snow out there, it's like, what are we doing? Well, if we don't use it, we can't get it into budget next year.
So
I mean,
that's
that's
it.
just asinine.
The courtroom does not meet the criteria adopted by the state. Proper jury rooms and judge chambers with emergency egress, along with better prisoner holding and transport facilities, are among the laundry list of issues that need to be addressed. Well, I mean, obviously they ain't them bigger issues, or they would have went ahead and said it, right? So, I mean, we're just kind of trying to skim through this, folks. Kind of point out what we see. This is not a new modern facility, and we don't claim to be, but in my opinion, we don't need it and we can't afford it. So it's back to what, just because I want a Lamborghini doesn't mean that I got one.
You better ride your 10-speed for a while yet.
Yeah, well, I don't ride 10 speeds, but
You know what I mean.
I got an 18 speed. But
But at the end of the day,
folks, we can't afford the damn thing. I mean, they make it look like we can, but if we really needed it, we might be able to. But why would the sheriff need a $2.3 million office? I can't see any logical reason at all in that. And so to take a couple $1 million to upgrade the facilities we have, I can understand that. To try to float a $22 million monstrosity that people are just going to make a lot of money off of to build it. And by the time you pay the tax on it, you're going to be close to 40 million, or pay the interest on it, excuse me. By the time you pay all that there is to pay, and that's the thing too, when they're telling you this mill, they're telling you, well, your mill levy, that's what it is for the principal. They don't tell you what it is for the interest. And I mean, interest went down a 1/4 point today, but the big boys, I mean, you go to try to get you a loan, they're going to try to charge you 11, 12, 13, 14, 15% interest, depending on who you talk to.
well, that's a whole nother money-making part on taxpayers. That's a whole nother avenue of exploiting the taxpayer. And it's we the people. If we don't stand up for ourselves, guaranteed you, these people ain't.
No, and
There ain't one in there. I mean, not one commissioner in there is going, wait a minute. I never seen them take this issue up. They couldn't get a bond because the books are in such disarray, they couldn't get a...
and now they try to
There
say
ain't no way they're getting a loan.
now they try to say the books are in order, but yet we still can't come up with a transaction amount of how much they paid the Justice Center.
We're going to.
But yeah, this is
Is it 64 pages? I think it was like 64 pages.
yeah, they don't have it listed.
No, it's not listed, but it's 64 pages.
I mean it's a pretty good
Anyways,
stack
it's a
of
good
stuff.
score. We felt good about Lucas stumbling across it. I don't know what he was down in the... I don't know if they're getting rid of all the hard copy paperwork and shredding stuff, and I don't know what's going on down
Well,
there.
they said something about they were going to. Oh, we're just going to go ahead and destroy them documents. Well, man, there's a reason why you keep documents.
Well, especially when you're doing...
And so, we're not trying to accuse them of anything, but yet they can't prove that they ain't doing it. That's the whole thing. You can't show that you're not doing it because you're not above reproach. You're right there in suspicion. You're suspicious activities.
Yeah, because it's not their personal business. If it was their personal business, I wouldn't be whining about it.
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't care.
They work for me. They work for us.
Spending our
And
money.
they're held to a higher standard of behavior.
The problem, folks, is that we haven't been holding them to a higher level of behavior, and that's why we're here. That's why
Yep.
we're going through this. I mean, do I hope that it's out? Do I hope that it's squashed? Of course I do. But do I think that it's squashed? No, I don't. Because why are we still paying $50,000 a year to the Chet Haggett Trust for ground that we can't use for anything besides government buildings? With all that being said, I guess we beat the horse to a bloody pulp, and this stuff will be on the website. We encourage everybody to look at it. Show your friends, tell your friends.
Yeah, and some of this other stuff, I'll get it to Mikey too, but yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff that the state is wanting things to change.
Well, and this is one of the things too, folks, that, I mean, bear in mind, right? So, I mean, trying to bite my tongue here about our queer-ass governor. Queer boy up at the governor's seat, right? They're trying to put all this wokeness baloney right in front of us and expecting us to swallow the crap, folks. And so I'm not saying that we don't need to be safe and that we don't need our people safe and our law enforcement officers safe. Do I think the criminals need to be safe? That's a whole different realm of opinion. They broke the law. They're in there for a reason. Do they need to be treated like the rest of us? No. If they deserved to be treated like the rest of us, they wouldn't be in there. And so that's the whole thing, is that there's no
Consequences.
there's no consequences. That's what the old man tells me day after day after day. There's no consequences, but there's plenty of consequences for some little hayseed like you and I.
Well, here's the deal. You start looking at how fancy some of this stuff is, and then I was reading the standards that they're requiring. Man, that's like going to, Four Seasons. Man, you almost want to go break the law to go up in there. It's like, man, looky here. Unbelievable how we're accommodating the lawbreakers.
It's just like a
And then penalizing the people that are responsible,
actually paying the money.
and that is the absolute carnival that's going on here. That's the contrast.
Sinister.
It's sinister, but it's the government for the government, supported by the people. And if we, the people, don't wake our asses up and shut it down, we're going to wake up here just like they did in Illinois, there in Chicago and whatnot. Them folks, They got to sell their property when they retire because they can't afford the taxes. So they sell their property, get an RV registered in Texas, and they're on the road. They get their check in the mail and they're kicking ass. But they can't afford that house. And I don't want to wake up one day and have that happen.
No, and that 7 mil increase is a lot, folks. I mean, like I said, I can't remember exactly what we are. I thought we were around between 8 and 9 mils already. So you're almost talking about doubling the mill rate for something that we don't need. I mean, let's be realistic. Even if we put $2 million into the existing facilities we got, I mean, we can get there with that. Hell, there's a lot of hardworking people in this county that would love to get to work and not have somebody that's already entitled and somehow getting the in by some crooked method or means. And I'm convinced that there's something going on here because of the lack of transparency. I mean, you can't. Anybody that has any kind of a mindset would understand that if it's so great and it's so wonderful, why are they hiding all this stuff? Why did they make the transaction in one meeting? Why did they do all this stuff? Why are they paying 5 times more than the property's worth? And I know that it fits like a glove, but there was 3 or 4 different properties around within a half mile that were for sale and sold for a lot less than what the appraised value was. So, like, what kind of a connection is there between the Chet Haga Trust and the people? I mean, somebody had to get paid off somewhere or another. Why else would it happen like that?
And the person that was selling it, I mean, does he have any background to him?
He does have background, and we've talked about that before. He's already been in the penitentiary for fraud.
Dang.
Bam. I mean, and we're not trying to point fingers. We're just telling you what we know.
So when you come across something like this, you've got to do everything you can to be above board. And there's statutes out there and there's procedures that as an elected official, you have to take and go through that process in order to stay above reproach. There's safeguards that protect you if you follow the law. The law hasn't been followed here. That's what we have up here. People don't follow the law. And maybe they're just good old boys and, well, we didn't know what it was. That's where the standard of behavior's got to be looked at in these. Whoever's going to be a commissioner needs to go to commissioner school before they get elected. You're thinking about being a commissioner? Go get educated before you become a public servant because you have a lot to learn on what is required of you. And it's not that tough. We're putting one together. I'm putting one together, and I've got a couple friends that are pretty smart about it.
And that's the thing, too, is it's not that tough, right? It's ethics, right? Like,
you either got it or you don't.
Well, and that's the thing. And trying to say, well, we're going to go to commissioner school and figure all this out, in my opinion, that ain't going to help all that much. You're already
on the character. You're right.
Already born with what you got, right? I mean, you are who you are. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't improve yourself with schooling because, I mean, that's the goal of everybody in this whole world, right, is to have more knowledge. But the way that you act is the way that's who you are.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, people can change, but most of the time they don't.
Well, when you get in a public office and you're doing the public's business, you better have a good sense about you. You better say, wait a minute, I don't want anybody even thinking about I did something crooked. I'm going to protect myself every inch of the way. But when you have people talking about, oh, this sunshine law keeps me from doing our business. Well, that's what it's there for, dum-dum. So you can't scheme against us. You got to get it in the sunshine. It's not cold in the closet. It's not cold out by the barn. It ain't, you know what I mean? It ain't cold out by the barn law.
And that's back to the whole thing of how can you get something like this?
It's dumbfounding.
In one meeting.
It's dumbfounding.
And the commissioner's on record saying, well, you didn't miss nothing because we only had one meeting. Like,
on acquiring the land.
We ain't making this up, folks. This is what we didn't say it.
It's all right there.
So yeah, I mean it's and once again, not trying to belittle anybody or point fingers, but answers. We want answers, and at this point, we ain't getting none. And so if they're so forthcoming, why would they hide everything from us?
Well,
Obviously, there's ulterior motives, or it wouldn't have went down the way it went down.
We ought to be able to get some of the discussion and what's taken place, and the how vague it is, and the lack of transparency. It just reeks of wrongdoing. It reeks of it.
And that's what we were talking about before, to try to say that everybody that was involved is incompetent or they made a mistake.
We call ball hockey on that.
Yeah, there's no chance, right? I mean, there's ulterior motives there. And if not, right, I mean, if they honestly believed that what they were doing, right, like, I mean, I know a couple of them guys, I mean, I think pretty highly of the bailiff.
Yeah, well, Mikey.
Yeah,
He's the judge now.
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty highly of him. I mean, if he didn't, I would hope that if he didn't think that it was our best interest, he wouldn't have went along with it. But how they buffaloed that through, how the committee chair brought it to the commissioners, and then in one meeting, and then it went right to the attorney, and then they signed it. That's
Well, there should have been
nobody does business like that unless unless it's underhanded. That's where I'm coming from.
and I do need to find the statute to apply to that circumstance in which they were doing the public's business. I know, just like when they were hiring the county manager, there was a procedure and there was a law, there was a statute that was created in order to keep conflict of interest, would nil that out, and it would give a buffer between the elected officials in the hiring of that individual. There's a procedure that was developed to bring uprightness and doing things in the sunshine. And I know when you're going to be buying a piece of property of the nature that they did, it just stands to reason that there was a procedure. There's a statute that says, look, if that's what you're going to do, this is how you need to do it.
Will the bank let you buy a piece of property for 5 times of what the appraised value is? No. I mean, nobody does that.
I just want to see the 3 appraisals. I would like to see that. I would like to see something.
There is no appraisals, or otherwise they wouldn't have done what they did. You ain't going to give 5 times over something and have 3 appraisals.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So this thing just reeks of high heaven. But it's the same thing when they were hiring the county manager. And that whole thing should have been busted out, and somebody should have been brought up on misfeasance, malfeasance, and nonfeasance. Because that was a lot of money that left out of that building. And I think it was called extortion, too. That's a whole nother issue.
Leverage, yeah, bulldozing, the whole 9 yards. Yeah, I mean, they're putting us in harm's way and forcing us to make a call. That's what they're doing here. It's like, okay, well, we're already on the hook. We're buying this property, so like if you folks don't go ahead and pass it so we can get this Justice Center built, we're going to buy this property and
we'll show you.
Yeah, we'll have this property. Like, hell, give the property back. Take our losses. If they would have gave it back when we voted it down, we'd only cost us $150,000 instead of $250,000. And now what we're talking about is at the end of when it's all said and done, it's going to be what, 580-some thousand?
Why wasn't there a conditional contract put in place saying, look...
Yeah, and who negotiated the contract? And
see, that's what...
Why would the attorney go for it?
I mean, it's bizarre.
It's bizarre.
Why wouldn't there have been a condition in the contract stating, hey, listen, you guys, we'd like to have your property. Here, we're going to negotiate on a price. Okay, but listen, we're not going to give you any money, but we do need to hold it. If it passes, Okay, then if it passes, and the people agree that they want to have, higher taxes and this big old Taj Mahal, well, then we'll go ahead and commit to buying it. Can we do that? Can we just? There wasn't anything like that.
There wasn't anything like that.
Nothing. It looks like it was just a power play.
Well, yeah. Why would we buy a piece of property that we're handcuffed down to only putting a government building on? I mean, number one, we're not in the land speculation business.
So here again, there should have been a way out. Okay, now listen, Mr. Haga, if we can't use this property, we got to have a way out.
Yeah, and so
there's no way out here.
The way out right now is we just quit paying on it. That's the thing, folks. The way out is we're done. So tell your commissioners that you're done, that you've had enough. Cut the strings. We're no longer interested. Quit asking the architects to make it cheaper. Tell them we've had enough.
So the nonsense is an all-time high is all I'm getting at. Anybody that has any kind of sense at all that's been in real estate or development or some kind of negotiations, in any kind, there's 19 different ways that could have been structured that I know of. That would have protected the constituent and the taxpayer, would have put us out on the limb. It would have been not risking our money. And that's when you're a trustee, is you got to put their welfare above your own desire.
And they've kind of had some help, right, to word it and orchestrate it the way that they've done it. Right, it goes back to Tabor. Where you're not supposed to indebt to people for more than the year that you have the money budgeted for. And so what do? They come up with this scheme of a lease that says, well, you can opt out anytime you want. I mean, that's the exact same thing that we have with John Deere with the road graders. John Deere hopes that we pay that we have them for whatever amount of years, but they understand that the way that the lease is written, I mean, we can turn them in tomorrow. Done.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
And that's the way this deal is with the Chet Haga Trust. We can just quit paying on it and say we're done. But they're not doing that. Well, and if it was over, they would have done that already. And that's why, the gentleman that wrote in to us about we don't have very many people that write us, but we had a gentleman that wrote to us on the Red County Blue Nation email saying, well, that his official opinion is that they'll never be able to do the Justice Center, that we've already voted it down, and that he's done a lot of research towards that. My question to him is if that is the case, that's the way that it should be. But if that's the case, why are they still paying on the property? Why would we pay on property that we can't get out from under any other way besides putting a government building in? And I mean, who's going to come in here? FEMA? We're going to let FEMA put a territorial prison in here and put Jimmy in there?
I'll be the warden. I'll be the warden.
Warden of cell block C. And I mean, we laugh and joke about it, folks, but it's serious, right? I mean, you don't do this kind of thing when you're ethical and when you're just and when you're a good human being, right? There's ulterior motives here going on, and just exactly what it is, I'm not sure. We might never get to the bottom of it. I mean, they've done their best to cover it up. I mean, that's why there's no minutes. If this is the only thing that we have to show for a $40 million transaction, boy, disappointing.
Well, it's you can't even conceive that. That's not even that is Hollywood couldn't make that story up. You couldn't. That's so far-fetched. That's as far-fetched as you could possibly ever get. And for these, I mean, if I was one of them, I'd be cringing. I'd be going, damn. Well, we sure didn't handle that very good for good old boys up here. The whole thing reeks.
It reeks.
And I have a lot of admiration for some of the people that were on that committee. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not devaluing them, but did they get a copy of this? Did they know what was going on? Or did they just go out blindly and say, hey, I don't feel comfortable about being in the courthouse, Jimmy. I'm the bailiff up there, and we could do some things different. Or the lady that gives out, you got to go in and pay your fees to, or whatever, the courthouse lady, she's administered. She was all in favor for it. The judge, she was all in favor for it. I mean,
And that's the thing is, I mean, this is a pretty good sales pitch, but that's what these people are in the business of selling architecture.
there was only 2 or 3 constituents on that committee. The rest of them were elected officials or people that were really tight with what could come out of this. That's the other thing that I'm discouraged about. But there should have been meetings, open meetings, saying, look, these are the things, this is the compliance that we have to do. That the Hell's Angels out there coming to get
Well, I
us?
don't know. I'd be careful of riding that dirt bike out screaming around down the street on the ice. Be calling the ambulance.
Anyways, long story
Oh, is
short.
that
The Popo?
Oh, it is.
The Popo's gonna go get him.
Law dog's after him.
He'll be down in Kenya. In a warm cell down there. Oh, just take me over here, please. Take me to the Custer County Jail, please. Anyways,
Folks, wish you the best of the happy holidays. Spend time with your loved ones. Dig down deep inside yourself. I mean, let's make a difference for ourselves, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, everybody wants Trump to do it all, but he can't do it all. I mean, we have to make it happen. We have to make it happen on every level, every day. And that's where an individual makes it happen, right? We have to make this stuff happen in our own lives, in our own community. And so with that being said, we wish you a good evening.
yep, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.